The meeting room was huge. It could fit 300 beings easily, but today only 12 sat around the curved table. The walls were made of clear metal that showed the stars outside. Ships moved slowly past the windows like metal fish swimming in the dark. Ambassador Li Jiwan sat quietly in her chair. She was small compared to the other beings in the room. Her black hair was pulled back neatly, and she wore a simple blue uniform. On her collar, a small pin showed the Earth, a tiny blue and green circle. Jiwan had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Council for 2 years now. She always spoke softly. She always said please and thank you. She often seemed confused by big words and had to ask for them to be said again. The other council members thought humans were simple creatures who got lucky finding space travel. Across her, from her sat Vextar. He was 7 feet tall with green scales that caught the light. His yellow eyes never blinked. He came from a world where only the strong survived. Weakness disgusted him. He thought humans were the weakest species he had ever seen. Human, Vextar said, his voice like rocks grinding together. Your people have been in space for what? 50 years? We have ruled the stars for 50,000. Jiwan nodded and smiled. Yes, sir. We are very new. We have much to learn from wise beings like you. Next to Vextar sat Morden. The Silicon Collective had sent their best negotiator. His body was made of living metal and crystal. Light pulsed through his frame as he thought. To him, emotions were errors in thinking. Humans seemed to be made of nothing but errors. The data shows human colonies produce significant agricultural surplus, Morden stated. His voice sounded like a computer. This surplus should be shared with more established species. Oh, Jiwan said, tilting her head. You mean our food? We do grow quite a bit, but our people eat a lot too. How much were you thinking? On Jiwan's left sat her assistant, Kim Minho. He was young and quiet. He took notes on a small tablet and rarely spoke. Today he seemed to be writing more than usual. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. Krisha spread her massive wings. The bird-like alien stood 8 feet tall when she stretched up. Her feathers were golden and sharp as knives. The Avian Federation believed that showing strength was the only way to earn respect. Small human, Krisha screeched. Your species is soft. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. How did you even survive on your world? Jiwan looked down at her hands. They were pale and looked fragile next to the alien's natural weapons. We're not very strong, she admitted. We had to work together a lot, and we used tools. Tools? Vextar laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. We have seen your tools. Metal sticks that make small explosions. Child's toys compared to real weapons. The meeting had been going like this for 3 days. Each day the demands got bigger. Each day Jiwan seemed more lost and confused. The aliens were starting to think they could take whatever they wanted from humanity. Outside the window, Captain Park Junho watched from the observation deck. He commanded the human ship that had brought the diplomatic team here. The Souls. Pride looked small next to the alien warships, but it had brought them safely through space. Park was not small like Jiwan. He was tall and broad with serious eyes. His uniform was military style, not diplomatic. He watched the meeting through. The glass in his jaw got tighter every hour. Captain, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Choi Hana, the ambassador is taking a lot of abuse in there. She knows what she's doing, Park replied, but his hands were fists. Back in the meeting room, Vextar was talking about human colonies. Your settlements are scattered and weak. They would be better protected under our guidance. Guidance? Jiwan asked. She sounded confused again. Protection, Morden explained. Your colonies would benefit from experienced oversight. In exchange for this service, a portion of their output would support the protectors. Jiwan nodded slowly. You want to help protect our people? That's very kind. But wouldn't that be expensive for you? Krisha's laugh was like a hawk's cry. Silly human, you would pay for the protection. Oh, Jiwan said. She looked at Minho. He was still writing, on his tablet. How much would that cost? 60% of all production, Vextar said. Food, minerals, manufactured goods, everything. Jiwan's eyes went wide. 60%? That seems like a lot. Our people need those things too. Your people need to learn their place, Krisha snapped. The strong take care of the weak serve the strong. This is the natural order. Minho looked up from his tablet for the first time all day. He glanced at Jiwan. She gave him a tiny nod. He went back to writing, but now his expression had changed. He looked focused, like someone getting ready for something important. The negotiations continued. The aliens wanted mining rights to Earth's moon. They wanted to inspect human ships whenever they pleased. They wanted humans to work in alien factories and mines. With each demand, Jiwan seemed to shrink a little more in her chair. She asked questions that made her sound simple. She apologized for not understanding things quickly enough. She promised to ask her superiors about everything. Your superiors, Vextar said. They must be smarter than you to send someone so limited to speak for them. I do my best, Jiwan said quietly. Sometimes I think they made a mistake choosing me for this job. What the aliens didn't notice was small things. They didn't see how Minho's tablet was actually sending coded messages to the human ship. They didn't notice that Jiwan never actually agreed to anything, only promised to consider it. They didn't realize that her confused questions were getting very specific information about alien military capabilities. Outside, Captain Park received another message from Minho. His expression darkened. On the ship, crew members started moving with more purpose. Systems that had been on standby began warming up. The third day of talks was ending. Tomorrow, the aliens planned to present their final demands. They were confident the weak humans would agree to everything rather than risk conflict. We will conclude tomorrow, Vextar announced. You will give your answer to our generous offers. Jiwan stood up and bowed politely. Thank you for your patience with me. I know I'm not very smart about these things. I'll think very hard about everything you've said. As the aliens filed out, talking among themselves about how easily humans could be controlled, Jiwan remained seated. She waited until they were gone. Then she looked at Minho. Send the message, she said. Her voice was different now, clearer, stronger. Minho's fingers flew over his tablet. On the human ship, Captain Park received a simple code, 3 numbers that meant everything was about to change. Jiwan stood and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars and the alien ships floating in the darkness. Tomorrow they would learn something about humanity, something they wouldn't like. But tonight, she would let them sleep peacefully in their ignorance. The 4th day started early. Jiwan arrived at the meeting room before sunrise. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept well. Her uniform was perfect as always, but there were small, dark circles under her eyes. Minho followed behind her carrying a larger tablet today. It was 3 times the size of his usual one. When the aliens asked about it, he explained it was for taking detailed notes of their final agreements. Vextar entered the room with confidence. His scales gleamed in the artificial light. He had spent the night planning how to divide up human territories among his allies. Humanity would become a servant species, and he would be remembered as the one who made it happen. Krisha flew in through the upper entrance, her golden feathers catching the light. She landed heavily on her perch, making it creak under her. Wait! She had dreamed of hunting grounds on human worlds, weak prey animals that thought they were equals. Morden walked in with mechanical precision. His calculations showed that human resources could increase Silicon collective efficiency by 37%. It was simple mathematics. The humans would serve because serving was logical. Human Jiwan, Vexitar began, settling into his chair. Today we finish our talks. You have had time to think about our offers. Jiwan nodded. Yes, sir. I thought about them all night. They are very detailed. Good, Krisha said. Then you understand the benefits of accepting our protection. The benefits, as they called them, had grown overnight. Now the aliens wanted 70% of human production. They wanted the right to place military bases on human worlds. They wanted human ships to carry alien observers at all times. But The worst demand came from a new alien who had joined them this morning. Ambassador Thulnox represented the traitor cartels. He was thin and gray with too many fingers. His species bought and sold everything, including people. "We will need workers," Thulnox said in a voice like rustling paper. "Young humans adapt well to new environments. We estimate 50,000 per year would be sufficient." Jiwan blinked slowly. 50,000 people? Per year? Where would they work? "Various locations," Thulnox replied. "Mining operations, agricultural facilities, construction projects, standard labor contracts." "For how long?" Jiwan asked. Thulnox waved a hand dismissively. 20 to 30 years, depending on performance and health. Minho's typing stopped. For just a moment, the room was quiet except for the hum of the station's systems. When he started typing again, his fingers moved much faster. Jiwan looked confused again. "That's a very long time. Would they be able to visit their families?" "Unnecessary," Morden stated. "Emotional attachments reduce efficiency. Workers perform better when focused solely on their tasks." Vextar leaned forward. "This is our final offer, human. Your species has 3 choices. Accept our terms and live under our protection. Refuse and face the consequences, or—" He paused, showing his many sharp teeth. "Continue to waste our time with your questions." "What consequences?" Jiwan asked, softly. "Your colonies are small and far from Earth," Krisha explained. "Space is dangerous. Ships get lost. Settlements fail. These things happen when species try to expand beyond their abilities. The threat was clear. Accept slavery or face war." Jiwan sat very still for a long moment. Outside the window, Captain Park watched from the observation deck. His communications officer stood beside him now, along with several other crew members. They all looked tense. "I need to ask my government," Jiwan said finally. "No," Vextar snapped. "You decide now. We have been patient long enough." "But this is a big decision," Jiwan protested. "I can't make it alone." Thulnox made a sound like laughing but cold. "Your government sent you here to negotiate. If you—" "Cannot negotiate. What use are you?" Morden's lights pulsed faster. "The human displays typical emotional response to logical pressure. This confirms our assessment of their species' limitations." Krisha stood to her full height, wings spread wide. "Small human, your people will serve whether you agree or not. The only question is whether they serve willingly or as conquered slaves." Something changed in the room. It was subtle, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. Jiwan had gone very quiet and very still. Minho's tablet made a soft beeping sound. He looked at the screen and nodded once. Then he set the tablet down and folded his hands in his lap. "Ambassador," Vextar said, his patience gone. "Give us your answer." Jiwan reached up slowly and took out her translation earpiece. It was a small device that helped her understand the aliens' languages and made her words clear to them. She had worn it every day for 2 years. She placed it carefully on the table in front of her. "What are you doing?" Krisha demanded. Jiwan looked up. When she spoke, her voice was different, clear and strong with no trace of confusion or uncertainty. "I'm turning off the translator," she said in perfect galactic standard. No accent, no hesitation, no stumbling over complex words. "I won't be needing it anymore." The aliens stared. Vextar's eyes narrowed. "You speak our language perfectly." "Yes," Jiwan replied. "I always have." The broken speech was an act. The confusion, the questions, the apparent weakness. All of it was performance. Morden processed this information quickly. "Deception. You have been gathering intelligence while appearing incompetent." "Very good," Jiwan said with a smile that had no warmth in it. "You're learning." She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, something was happening to the human ship. Lights were coming on all along its hull. Lights that hadn't been visible before. "You see," Jiwan continued, "humans learned something very important in our history. We learned that being underestimated is often more valuable than being feared." Krisha's feathers rustled with anger. "You dare trick us?" "I didn't trick you," Jiwan corrected. "I let you trick yourselves. You assumed that politeness meant weakness. You thought that asking questions meant ignorance. You believed that seeking peace meant being unable to fight. She turned back to face them. The small, confused diplomat was gone. In her place stood someone who looked like she could command armies. "Captain Park," she said clearly, "please join us in the council chamber." Through the window they could see movement on the human ship. Figures in military uniforms were preparing to shuttle over to the station. Vextar stood up, his scales darkening with rage. "You think your single ship threatens us? We have a dozen warships in this system." Jiwan checked her watch. "Correction. You had a dozen warships, you now have a dozen very expensive pieces of space junk." Alarms started sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red. Automated voices announced system failures on the alien vessels. Minho finally looked up from his tablet. "All alien ships have been remotely disabled," he reported in crisp, professional tones. "Weapons offline, engines offline, life support maintained. No casualties." "How?" Mordun demanded, his lights flashing frantically. "Cyber warfare," Jiwan explained. "We've been mapping your computer systems for 2 years. Every time you connected to our primitive technology, we learned a little more about yours. Every data exchange gave us deeper access." The door to the chamber opened. Captain Park walked in, followed by several officers in human military uniforms. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had trained for this exact moment. Park was tall and solid, with steady eyes and the bearing of someone used to being obeyed. He nodded politely to the aliens, then took a position behind Jiwan. "Counselors," Jiwan said formally, "allow me to present Captain Park Junho of the Human Defense Force vessel Soul's Pride. Captain, please inform our guests about our current tactical situation." Park smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Gladly, Ambassador. Gentlemen, ladies and assorted beings, you are now prisoners of war." Captain Park moved to the center of the room with calm confidence. He wasn't rushing or showing off. He acted like someone who had done this many times before. The aliens watched him with growing unease. "Let me clear up some misunderstandings," Park said. His voice was steady and professional. "First, that ship you've been looking at for 4 days? It's not a diplomatic escort vessel. It's a heavy cruiser disguised as a transport." He gestured toward the window. The Soul's Pride was changing before their eyes. Panels slid away to reveal weapon ports. The smooth hull reconfigured itself, showing the angular lines of a warship designed for battle. "Second," Park continued, "we're not alone." The space around the station began to shimmer. One by one, ships appeared out of nowhere. Big ships. Combat. Vessels that had been hiding with advanced stealth technology. Within minutes, 24 human warships surrounded the station. Vextar's scales had gone pale. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected them." Lieutenant Commander Choi Hana stepped forward. She was small, but carried herself like a weapon, waiting to be used. "Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. We've been studying your technology for 2 years. We know how your scanners work better than you do." Jiwan activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the local star system. Red dots marked alien ships, all dead in space. Blue dots showed human vessels in perfect attack positions. "Third misconception," Jiwan said. "You think we're new to warfare?" The display changed, showing Earth, but not the peaceful blue world the aliens expected. The planet was covered with massive industrial complexes, military bases, and orbital defense platforms. The moon wasn't just a source of minerals. It was a fortress bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "Humans have been fighting wars for 10,000 years, Park explained. "We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with gunpowder and atomic weapons. We've fought on land, at sea, in the air, and in space. We are very, very good at it." Dr. Nam Jiho entered the chamber. He looked like a scientist, thin and pale with thick glasses. But when he spoke, his words made the aliens' blood run cold. "We've also been studying your biology," Dr. Nam said pleasantly. Did you know that reptilian nervous systems shut down completely when exposed to a specific sonic frequency? Or that silicon collective units become brittle at temperatures just below their normal operating range? Fascinating stuff. He pulled out a small device that looked like a medical scanner. We could disable every alien on this station without harming a single human. We developed the technology months ago. Morden's lights flickered frantically. You threaten us with biological warfare? Not threaten, Dr. Nam corrected. Demonstrate capability. There's a difference. Engineer Bae Sumin stepped up to the holographic display. She looked young and friendly, like someone who might fix your computer. The aliens were learning not to trust appearances. Should we show them the mining ship modifications? She asked Jiwan. Please do. The display showed human mining vessels throughout the galaxy. They looked ordinary, just ships designed to break apart asteroids and extract minerals. But as they watched, the ships began to transform. Mining lasers became beam weapons. Ore processors became missile factories. Simple cargo haulers revealed themselves as mobile weapons platforms. Every human civilian ship can be converted to military use in under 6 hours, Bae explained. We learned that from our history too. Sometimes you need to turn farming tools into weapons very quickly. Krisha spread her wings in an aggressive display. You cannot threaten the entire galaxy. We're not threatening anyone, Jiwan replied calmly. We're explaining why threatening us was a mistake. Commander Han Kyung had been standing quietly by the door. Now he moved forward carrying a tablet similar to Minho's. His uniform marked him as intelligence services, the people who gathered secrets. We know about the raids on our colonies, Han said. The ones you thought we didn't notice. The survey missions that stole our people. The accidents that destroyed our supply ships. The display changed again, showing incident reports, ship logs, and surveillance footage. Evidence of dozens of attacks on human settlements that the aliens had dismissed as too primitive to matter. Every attack was recorded, Han continued. Every stolen citizen documented. Every destroyed ship tracked. We have enough evidence to prove systematic aggression against a council member species. Tulnox, who had been quiet since the humans revealed themselves, finally spoke. What do you want? Justice, Jiwan said simply. Reparations for damages, return of kidnapped humans, and a guarantee that it stops now. Vexitar struggled to maintain his authority. You cannot enforce your will against the combined might of the council. Combined might? Park laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Let me show you something. The holographic display expanded to show the entire local region of space. Hundreds of star systems appeared, marked with different colors. Red for hostile alien territory, green for human space, and a growing number of blue zones, systems that had quietly allied themselves with humanity. While you were busy underestimating us, Park explained, we were busy making friends. Turns out a lot of species are tired of being bullied by the advanced civilizations. Specialist Lee Hyun stepped forward. She was young and looked harmless, but when she spoke, the aliens realized they were hearing from someone who understood minds and how to break them. Psychological warfare is a human specialty, she said conversationally. We've been influencing your decisions for months. That trade agreement that seemed so favorable to you, it actually gave us access to your supply chains, those cultural exchange programs. Our people learned everything about your societies while yours learned nothing useful about ours. She smiled sweetly. You've been manipulated by beings you considered inferior. How does that feel? The aliens were beginning to understand the scope of their mistake. Humanity hadn't stumbled into galactic politics as naive newcomers. They had entered as predators wearing the mask of prey. Tactical analyst Oh Seung-yun brought up new displays showing human military doctrine, battle plans that made the aliens sick to look at, strategies that involved turning entire star systems into weapons, tactics that prioritize complete victory over survival. This is how humans fight, Oh explained. We don't seek to defeat our enemies, we seek to eliminate them as threats forever. We call it total war, and we are the best at it in known space. The room had gone very quiet. The aliens sat in their chairs, trying to process what they had learned. The weak, simple humans they had planned to enslave were actually the most dangerous species they had ever encountered, and they had made them angry. Jiwan walked back to her chair and sat down. She picked up her translation earpiece and put it back on. When she spoke again, her voice had returned to the soft, slightly confused tone the aliens remembered. "So," she said pleasantly, "shall we discuss new terms for our relationship?" The aliens sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humans had been turned upside down in minutes. The weak prey species they had planned to exploit were actually apex predators who had been playing a game the aliens didn't even know existed. Vextar was the first to find his voice. "What do you want from us?" Jiwan smiled that same sweet, innocent smile she had worn for 2 years. But now the aliens could see the steel behind it. "Oh, that's simple. We want justice for our people and security for our future." She gestured to Minho, who activated another holographic display. This one showed a list of demands. Real demands, not the polite requests they had been making before. "First," Jiwan began, reading from the list, "immediate return of all humans taken from our colonies. We have names, dates, and locations. All of them." "That's impossible," Tholnox protested. "Some of those workers have been placed across dozens of systems." Captain Park stepped closer to the alien trader. "Then you'd better start making some calls. You have 72 hours to produce every single human citizen, or we start collecting them ourselves." The way he said collecting made it clear it wouldn't be a peaceful process. "Second," G1 continued, "full reparations for damages to human ships and colonies. We calculate the total at approximately 4 billion galactic credits." Morden's lights flashed in agitation. "That sum is unreasonable." "So was stealing our people," Commander Han replied coldly. "Should we discuss the psychological trauma costs as well, or the families destroyed by your labor programs?" Engineer Bay touched her tablet and new images appeared. They showed human colonies before and after alien raids. Burned buildings, destroyed infrastructure, families torn apart. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking. "Third," G1 said, "territorial guarantees. All human space is now off limits to military vessels from your governments. No exceptions." Krisha's feathers bristled. "You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy." Dr. Nam looked up from his tablet. "Would you like another demonstration of our biological weapons? I have some new compounds that specifically target avian nervous systems." Krisha went very quiet. Admiral Yoon Daiho appeared as a hologram in the center of the room. He was an older man with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had won many battles. Behind him, the bridge of a massive warship was visible. "Counselors," Admiral Yoon said formally, "I am speaking to you from the Human Defense Force flagship Busan's Thunder. We are currently positioned at the edge of this system with a full battle fleet." The holographic display showed the Admiral's ships. They were enormous, built for war on a scale the aliens had never imagined. Weapons that could destroy planets, shields that could withstand Starkiller bombs. This wasn't a patrol fleet. This was an armada designed to end civilizations. "I want to be very clear about something," Admiral Yoon continued. "We didn't bring these ships here to threaten you. We brought them here because we always planned to end this charade today. The only question was whether we would leave as friends or enemies." Strategic Coordinator Kang Minji stepped forward with yet another tablet. The aliens were starting to hate those tablets and the terrible information they contained. "Let me explain the current strategic situation," Kang said in the tone of a teacher addressing slow students. "You are currently aboard a neutral station with no weapons and disabled ships. We control this entire system. Our fastest ships can reach your homeworlds in 3 days. Your governments cannot rescue you because they don't know where you are." The aliens hadn't considered this. They had come to the negotiations confident in their power, never thinking they might not return home. "Are you holding us hostage?" Vextar demanded. "Hostage?" Jiwan looked genuinely confused. "Oh no, we're negotiating. This is how humans negotiate, when we're not being polite anymore." Specialist Lee Hae-yoon pulled up psychological profiles of each alien species. The displays showed detailed analyses of their fears, weaknesses and pressure points, information that had been gathered over months of careful observation. You know what's interesting? Lee said conversationally. Every one of your species has the same basic flaw. You assume that other beings think the same way you do. She pointed to Vexitar's profile. Reptilians respect only strength, so you assumed our politeness meant weakness. You never considered that we might be strong and choose to be polite. The display shifted to Krisha. Avians value aggression and dominance. You couldn't imagine a species that could dominate but chose not to. Finally, it showed Morden's data. Silicon collective units process information logically but lack intuition. You saw our behavior as emotional weakness instead of strategic misdirection. The psychological warfare was devastating because it was true. Each species had projected their own nature onto humanity and been completely wrong. Commander O brought up military deployment maps. They showed human forces throughout the galaxy, positioned in places the aliens had never suspected. Trade stations that were actually military bases, survey ships that were really reconnaissance vessels, civilian freighters carrying enough firepower to level cities. We've been preparing for this conversation for 2 years, O explained. Every human ship, every colony, every outpost was positioned with this day in mind. We are ready for any response you might make. The scope of human preparation was staggering. They hadn't just hidden their capabilities, they had built an entire secret military infrastructure while appearing to be peaceful traders and explorers. Thulnox, who dealt in information as much as goods, asked the question that terrified him most. How much do you know about our operations? Intelligence analyst Kim Tae-hoon, not to be confused with Minho, answered with a smile that was all teeth. Everything. Financial records, supply routes, communication codes, military deployments, government secrets. We know which officials can be bribed, which leaders have enemies, and which systems are on the edge of rebellion. He activated a display showing the internal politics of each alien government, corruption scandals, secret alliances, hidden weaknesses, information that could topple governments if released publicly. Information warfare is also a human specialty, Kim added. We could destroy your societies without firing a shot. The aliens realized they were trapped in multiple ways. Militarily, economically, politically, and informationally, humans held all the advantages. Every move the aliens might make had been anticipated and countered. Captain Park checked his watch. You have 2 hours to contact your governments and get approval for our terms. After that, we start implementing our backup plans. What backup plans? Mordun asked, though he probably didn't want to know. Park's smile was cold as space. The ones where we stop being polite to your people the same way you stopped being polite to ours. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If the aliens wouldn't return stolen humans peacefully, the humans would take them back by force. If they wouldn't pay reparations willingly, the humans would collect them through conquest. If they wouldn't guarantee human security, the humans would guarantee it themselves by removing any threats. Jiwon stood up and smoothed her uniform. I'm going to get some coffee while you make your calls. This has been very tiring, pretending to be weak for so long. As she walked toward the door, she paused and looked back. Oh, and counselors, what you've seen today, this is still us being polite. We really don't want to show you what we're like when we're not. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving the aliens alone with their guards and their terrible new understanding of what humanity really was. 2 hours passed like years. The aliens made their calls while human guards watched silently. The conversations were difficult. How do you explain to your government that the weak species you plan to enslave has trapped you with weapons you didn't know existed? Vextar spoke to the reptilian high command in harsh, angry tones. His leaders demanded to know how he had allowed this to happen. He had no good answers. Krisha's call to the Avian Federation was full of screeches and wing flapping. Her people valued strength above all else, and learning that they had been outmaneuvered by prey animals was a humiliation that burned like acid. Morden's communication with the Silicon Collective was the strangest. His people processed information without emotion, but even they struggled to accept that their calculations had been so completely wrong. Thulnox had the hardest time. The trader cartels operated on profit and risk assessment. When he explained that humans had evidence of every illegal operation they had run, his supervisors began calculating how much money they would lose if that information became public. When the calls ended, the aliens sat in defeated silence. Their governments had given them permission to accept human terms. They had no choice. Jiwan returned with a cup of coffee and her usual pleasant smile. "How did your conversations go?" "Our governments agree to your terms," Vextar said through gritted teeth. "Wonderful." Jiwan clapped her hands together. "I'm so glad we could work this out peacefully." The word peacefully carried weight now. Everyone in the room understood that this had been the peaceful option. Minho began preparing the official documents. The agreements were complex, but they boiled down to simple ideas. Humans would be left alone, stolen. People would be returned, and damages would be paid. But there were other clauses, deeper ones that showed how thoroughly humans had planned this moment. Section 7 is interesting, Captain Park noted, reading over Minho's shoulder. It establishes human observers on all alien military vessels operating near our space. For safety, Jiwan explained sweetly, we want to make sure there are no more accidents. The aliens knew these observers would actually be intelligence, agents and saboteurs, but they had no choice but to agree. Section 12 grants humans access to all trade routes and markets, Admiral Yoon's hologram announced. On equal terms, of course. Equal terms that would allow human ships to go anywhere they wanted, carrying whatever they wanted. The aliens' control over galactic commerce was ending. Dr. Nam highlighted Section 15. This establishes joint research programs. We're so excited to learn from your advanced sciences. What he didn't say, but everyone understood, was that these programs would give humans access to alien technology while revealing nothing important about human capabilities. Engineer Bay pointed to Section 21. And this creates a mutual defense treaty. If anyone attacks human space, all signatory species will come to our aid. It was brilliant and terrifying. The aliens were being forced to protect the very people they had tried to enslave. The signing ceremony was brief. Each alien representative placed their mark on the documents with the resignation of prisoners accepting their sentences. When it was done, Jiwan stood and bowed politely to each of them. "Thank you all for your cooperation," she said. "I look forward to a long and peaceful relationship between our peoples." As the aliens prepared to leave, Vextar couldn't resist asking one last question. "How long have you been planning this?" Jiwan tilted her head thoughtfully. "Which part? The deception? The military preparation? The intelligence gathering?" "All of it. Since before we joined the council," she admitted. "We studied every member species for 3 years before we even applied for membership. We knew exactly what you would try to do to us." Krisha's feathers rustled. "You never intended to be peaceful partners." "Oh, but we did," Jiwan protested. "This was our second choice. Our first choice was to join the galactic community as equals and contribute to peace and prosperity for everyone." She gestured to the documents on the table. "You made that impossible when you decided we were weak enough to exploit, so we moved to Plan B." "What was Plan B?" Mordun asked. Jiwan's smile became sharp as a blade. "Make you afraid enough to leave us alone." As the aliens filed out under heavy guard, each one wondered the same thing. If this was what humans did when they were still being diplomatic, what would they do if someone actually made them angry? Captain Park waited until they were gone before speaking to Jiwan. "Think they'll honor the agreements?" "For a while," she replied. "Long enough for us to establish ourselves as the real power in this region." "And after that?" Jiwan walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Human ships were moving into patrol positions throughout the system. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. "After that," she said quietly, "we won't need agreements. We'll have something much more reliable." "Which is?" She turned back to him with that innocent smile that had fooled so many people for so long. Fear. Once the story of what happened here spreads, no one will risk finding out what humans do when we stop being polite. Outside, alien ships were being allowed to restart their engines under human supervision. Their crews worked frantically to repair systems that had been mysteriously damaged. They would limp home with tales of the day they learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to make everyone else believe they were harmless. The message would spread across the galaxy, at the speed of light. Humanity had revealed itself not as the weak newcomers everyone believed, but as predators wearing the mask of prey. They had played a game that lasted years, and they had won completely. And the most terrifying part wasn't what they had done. It was the knowledge that they were still holding back. Somewhere in the depths of human space, weapon systems remained unused. Battle fleets stayed in reserve. Strategies waited in classified files for the day when diplomacy finally failed completely. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity's politeness. Soon, they would learn to fear what came after.